Hey there, I'm Dave from Dave Needs a Hobby, and today I'm going to show you how to marble dye leather to achieve effects like this, or this, with only a few supplies that you probably have laying around in your workshop at about 20 minutes of time. Let's get started. Before we begin, let's go over all the supplies that we're going to need for this job. First off, I have my piece of 100% vegetable tanned leather, undyed. I get my leather from Frog Jelly, Weaver Leather, or Rocky Mountain Leather Supply Company, but any place will do. Just make sure it's undyed, 100% vegetable tanned leather. Next up, we're going to need our dye for the project. I use Fiebing's dye, and for this project, I'm going to be using black, turquoise, and their oxblood colorway, my personal favorite. The third thing we're going to need is a dropper. This is going to help us get the dye out of the bottles and onto the shaving cream. On that note, we're also going to need shaving cream. I go for the Barbasol brand just because it's super cheap, reliable, and gets the job done for me. Just make sure you don't get gel or any other type of shaving cream. You just want cheap, basic frothing shaving cream. As you can see, I'm wearing gloves, so make sure you have a pair of rubber gloves. This dye is super potent and will stick on your fingers for days, so wear some gloves. We're going to want a roll of masking tape. I like the thick painter's tape, but this is going to protect the backside of our leather. We'll go over that more in a little bit. We're going to want something to protect our workspace and put our shaving cream and dye into. I prefer aluminum foil, but I know some people like aluminum trays, plastic trays, cardboard, things like that. I just find aluminum foil super cheap, easy to spread to the length that I need, even for a belt or a larger project, and it's really easy to clean up. The next thing we're going to need is 100% pure Neatsfoot oil. Neatsfoot oil is going to protect our leather and give it the oils that it needs. We're going to also want a plastic cup or some other sort of cup to pour the oil into, and an application brush. I use Saddle from Fiebing's to finish my jobs. This is an optional one, but I recommend it. It gives a great shine to the leather and protects everything. You're going to also want on hand some paper towels as things get super messy. You're going to want some newspaper for when you're wiping the shaving cream and dye off your leather, and you're going to want something to spread the shaving cream around. I just use a piece of cardboard, but you can use a spackle tool, whatever they call that, or anything else that's a flat surface that'll spread the shaving cream. Alrighty, let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is protect the flesh side of our leather. So your leather has two sides, the finish side and the flesh side. The flesh side's going to be rough and bumpy, the finish side's going to be smooth. The dye is going to be going on this side of the leather, so we want to protect this inner side. My favorite way to do this is by using masking tape. Just get some pieces long enough to cover the flesh side and put them on. Once we're done, we can trim the edges. Just be sure not to cut your leather. This part doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to make sure our backside is protected from the dye. Next up, we want to protect our leather before we dye. When using alcohol-based dyes, such as Fiebing's, the alcohol penetrates into the leather and can suck out a lot of the beneficial oils that we want in the leather. The oils keep the leather supple, makes it age, and make sure it doesn't crack or get brittle. So to do so, let's put down a piece of newspaper, drop our leather on it, flesh side up, finish side up, and let's get some Neatsfoot oil on there. This doesn't have to be 100% even, just get a good coat over it. There we go. Let's let that dry for now. Our Neatsfoot oil coat is almost finished drying, so let's get our shaving cream and dye ready. Spread a piece of aluminum foil that's a little bit bigger than your project. As you can see, I'm doing a wallet cover, and I gave it probably about 6 inches on either side. Get your shaving cream, give it a good shake, and lay out enough on the aluminum foil that the entire piece of leather can fit within it. You don't have to go crazy, but make sure you use enough to cover the surface and leave some room to spread. Next, get your spreader and make it somewhat even. You don't have to make it perfect, but just give it a nice couple strokes to make sure that it's no bumps or lumps or anything like that. We can sit that over here for now. So you can see the shaving cream is big enough for my piece of leather. The next thing we're gonna do is put our dye into the shaving cream. Now this is where you can get really creative. There's no right way to do this, and this is where you're gonna get a lot of those crazy designs. So just go for it, see what you like, experiment. If you ever tie-dyed a shirt or something, it's similar to that process. So just try a bunch of different ways and see what you like. I'm gonna start with my ox blood. I'm gonna put this in a zigzaggy pattern. I don't really have a reason for doing this, but I just wanna see how it's gonna come out. Again, experiment. So we have some ox blood down. Let's do turquoise next. Now one thing to remember here is you don't have to use multiple colors. I've done with just brown or just black and just a simple turquoise. And you'll get some crazy color patterns as the dye dilutes in the shaving cream. So single colors will work fine too, but it's a lot of fun to use a bunch of colors. So I'm gonna put this turquoise around my ox blood. See how that looks. And then lastly, we're gonna get our black in there. Alrighty, that looks pretty good. The next step, where we can also get creative, is swirling the leather. So some people will use a Q-tip or a pencil or something like that. I just like to use my finger. I think it's easier. You can do it a bunch of different ways. You can swirl it in circles. You can swirl up and down. You can go in a zigzag. Again, you can be as creative as you want here. For this, I'm gonna try more of a circular movement and see what we get out of it. Just start moving stuff around. You don't want to mix it too much, as you don't want everything to blend and the colors to just get muddy. But keep going until you see something you like. Alrighty, I think that looks pretty good. When you're mixing it, make sure you get all the dye off your finger because you don't want to stain things as you're picking it up. Let's make sure that our leather is going to fit here. Yep, we have enough dye coverage on the shaving cream. So next step, let's put our leather into the shaving cream and the dye. For this, drop it into an area that will get coverage on all of the leather, and then press the leather into the shaving cream and the dye solution. And tap all around the edges. Make sure everything's getting coverage. The shaving cream will have some holes in it, so you want to make sure you're pressing it into the shaving cream just to get full coverage on that leather. Now we wait. You can let this sit. I usually let it sit for about 60 seconds to 2 minutes. If you pull it up too soon, you'll get a muddier color, a softer palette. If you let it go too long, you're gonna get really deep, dark, rich dye colors. Again, this is something that you can be creative with. Experiment with the dyes you use, the way that you swirl it, and the length that you let the leather sit in the dye. All right, so our dye's been sitting for about 2 minutes now, and let's see what we got. As you can see, I put some newspaper down. This is where we're gonna wipe our leather, and I have some paper towels off to the side, just ready so I don't dirty up the whole paper towel roll as I'm wiping. You're gonna grab a corner and just lift up. You're gonna probably have to secure the aluminum foil to keep things from moving. And you're gonna get something like this on the back side. So you see how these areas don't have dye in them? That's because of those holes I was talking about earlier. The shaving cream's gonna be full of air pockets and lumps and bumps. That's a natural part of this, and it does add to the effect. But if you do press deep into the shaving cream and dye solution, you can eliminate all of those if you want to. I like to leave it a little bit airy. I like the breathability of it, but that's up to you. Again, back to the creativity point. Let's put that down and let's see what we have underneath. Another note here is make sure you really wipe off all that shaving cream and dye solution. You don't want it sitting on the leather for too long. The shaving cream can dye and gives it a little bit of a muddier color. So just be sure to wipe. So there we have it. That's our first dye. As you can see, the ox blood and the turquoise is swirling around, and the black muddied it up so it's a little bit darker. If I didn't use the black, this would probably pop a little bit more, but I do like the muted tones of it. Next, let's let this dry for about 5 to 10 minutes before we finish it up. It's been about 10 minutes of this leather drying, so we're gonna finish it up with some Fiebing saddle lac. Again, this is an optional step, but I do love the finish it gives, and it does protect the leather. For the saddle lac, shake the can a little bit, pop the top, and grab a rag or paper towel to wipe your nozzle. This does dry on the nozzle and will give you uneven sprays in the future, so be sure to wipe your nozzle after every use. Another note about this is it is toxic, so make sure you're in a good, well-ventilated area. First things first, let's test it just to make sure this is spraying evenly. We got a good spray, so we can begin. With this, we're gonna wanna give nice, even strokes, maybe 1 or 2 passes for each line we're gonna do here. Hold it about 6 to 10 inches above the leather. And that's it. Let's let that sit for another 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll see our final product. So our saddle lac just finished drying, and here's our final product. You can see the shine on it from the saddle lac. The colors have set, it looks really good. And that's it. Here's some other examples of leather that have dyed with this marble dye process. Here's a green in oxblood. Here's another turquoise oxblood with a little bit of a lighter pink. And one of my personal favorites is this belt that I dyed using only brown. And it came out super beautiful, as you can see. Thanks for watching. If you liked following along as we marble dyed this leather, please hit the subscribe button. And if there's any questions, comments, or concerns, just drop something in the comment section and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks. Bye.